sitting with Charles, the Prismatica dev. Thanks so much for chatting and sitting with me today. We can talk a little bit of game development.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm very excited. I don't get to talk often, so...
You deserve it. You've got a really awesome YouTube channel, PrismaticaDev. You do Twitch streaming. I just wanted to talk a little bit about your game development process. But first, we're gonna start with a lightning round. I didn't give you these beforehand, so Charles has no idea what's coming his way, all right?
No idea.
All right,
Yeah.
So, favorite game?
Diablo 2.
Favorite video game character?
Link? From the Nintendo Zeldas?
My dog's name is Link, so right on.
Nice.
Game engine of choice?
Unreal Engine, obviously.
If you know PrismaticaDev, then you already knew that answer. PC or console?
PC Master Race. Yeah. But nothing against console users.
Okay.
They're all valid.
If a console, Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation?
Current generation?
You know what? Any generation. Favorite all-time console?
All time would be Nintendo 64, best console to ever exist. Current generation, I'm an Xbox over PlayStation guy. And as for the Switch, I think it leaves a little bit to be desired, I think. For the, yeah.
Pokemon games, need I say more? So,
Yeah.
N64, I feel that. That's kind of my jam too. Okay, I didn't even have this written down. Favorite N64 game?
Probably Conker's Bad Fur Day. I think it was one of the last to be released, so it's like pushing the console to its limits, and it's just so out there.
For anyone who does not know, that also had quite a bit of cuss words in that one.
It did. They were all like bleeped out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
but there was a lot of
that was a rare title, right?
Yeah, I love all their games, like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong 64. You just knew it was a rare game, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm inspired by, like the way they handle their soundtracks and stuff.
I still have the DK64 like theme song.
Yeah.
Pop up every once in a while.
Yeah.
2022 Game of the Year.
Ooh, funnily enough, I'm not actually a big recent game person. I think the only new game that I got this year was Farthest Frontier, which is like a city builder. It's in early access. I'm a big simulation person. Well, actually, wait, no, this is 2020. Oh, it'd be Elden Ring. Elden Ring, obviously. I forgot that came out this year. Game of the decade. It was very good. I'm a big Dark Souls fan, so Elden Ring was a step up.
Smash Bros. Character of choice.
Ganondorf in Melee and in Smash 4. Kirby in Smash 64.
That was mine. That was Kirby.
Yeah, with the up B and just slamming people off the edge.
Because you can't get rid of him. He just keeps flying back.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah, there's a lot of good cheese strats with Kirby.
Do you think Elder Scrolls 6 will ever be released? And if so, when?
Yes, within the next 5 years. However, will it be any good? I mean, looking back on Skyrim, there's some nostalgia goggles going on for sure.
Oh, the cat makes an appearance.
Yeah, it's Lady Cat, this one.
Last one. What is your favorite thing about game development?
Ooh, probably just the constant barrage of unique problems to solve. Just because there's so many facets to game development. I dabble in everything, so there's always just stuff to work out.
How did you get started in game dev? What sort of sparked it? What was the catalyst?
The catalyst was the COVID pandemic. Previously, I was an audio engineer and videographer and musician, and I'd never touched game development before, aside from Game Maker 3 when I was in high school, early high school. I'd always wanted to make games. It was kind of one of those, when I grow up, I want to be a fireman. I just sort of fell into music. But then with COVID and, there's no shows to be played, there's no shows to be recorded, or, people can't come out and do videos and whatnot. I was just you know what, it's time to give game dev a crack. And I saw that Unreal had the blueprint system. I use nodes all the time for video editing and all that kind of stuff. I downloaded Unreal and followed a tutorial where you switched on a light bulb, and ever since then it's just been Unreal every day for the past 2 years.
Did you try Unity before you tried Unreal, or did you?
I didn't. I think it was just the visual scripting system that sold it for me. Like, I always do a bit of research when I'm going to dive into something, and a lot of people said, yeah, like Unreal has the best visual scripting system. I looked at like a few tutorials before I downloaded it. Okay, this looks ridiculously simple to get started with. So I just jumped straight in. Haven't looked back.
Was that kind of the same time that you started your channel? Did that happen at the same time, or was that a different process?
Yeah, it was like from day one, I was like, okay, I wanna record, you know, like I'd seen devlogs before for indie games, so I figured reach out to people, you know, get stuff on YouTube, and filmed like a backlog of what I'd been doing, all my experiments and my ideas, and I edited together like the first 4 episodes of the devlog series. Then I started uploading them. But before I did the devlog series, I'd been trying to figure out how to like make the grass the same color as the landscape. And, you know, it's obvious now you use runtime virtual textures and whatever. I couldn't find any info anywhere. But then I saw a video by a lady named Yasmin, who like made this awesome scene in Unreal. It was like really Ghibli-esque. And I saw that when she was like painting the landscape, the grass was changing color. And so I sent her a message and was like, oh, how'd you do this? And she was like, oh, it was runtime virtual textures. And so that was the first tutorial that I made, was just me being like, I found this thing. I couldn't really find it readily available. So hopefully I can like help someone else find the answer. It's a pretty average video, but you know, you got to start somewhere. So that was kind of my first taste of tutorials.
And it's always kind of a weird mix between like what's a devlog and what's a tutorial, or what's like a specific.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the way that you've done it is you've really just kind of mixed everything together, and you made your tutorials much more interesting because you're adding that development cycle to it. You know, how did this kind of come about? Actually, I watched that grass tutorial, and I actually did the grass tutorial myself. So,
nice.
And that's how I learned about, you know, directing your normals and all that stuff. But I remember you did a sort of a devlog tutorial on this character customization, and you had this system that you developed that was a sort of an atlasing system. And I wondered, how do you come up with those sort of systems?
Step one is always open Microsoft Paint. I've got like this huge folder of, I can actually get it up. So this is my diagrams folder. We call them NFTs on stream because I'm gonna bundle a framed version. This is where it all starts. So like, you know, things like whatever this was, I think this is for determining the hit location of a character using like single capsules and stuff. Q shift versus alert. This is just a diagram for someone on Discord. Calculating the time of a projectile arc until it reaches the position. Looks like nonsense, but then things like the atlasing system.
Well, it just goes to show, like, because I've had people ask, you know, they're just getting started, like, how do you even start? What do you do? Getting the idea sort of on paper in a way that you can really change it quickly, because it changes all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't forget it as well. Even if they don't have names or anything, literally just some shapes and arrows can be really helpful. That's always step one. I guess after that, thinking about, you know, what does it need to do? When does it need to do it? What's like the scope? And what else is it going to have to kind of interface with? I see a lot of this with, like, you know, people that ask for help in the Discord and stuff. Like, where does the logic go? What does it belong on? What owns it? Like, naive me in the past would just be like, okay, yeah, we've got the player character. You know, we give it a copy of every weapon in the game and we just hide them and make them visible. Then it's like, okay, if I want to add a new weapon, or if I want to make AI able to use the same weapons and behave like the player, you know, in this case, the items themselves, the items have all of the, you know, the attack logic and dealing damage and all that kind of stuff. And so when any character just picks them up, the weapon's telling them how to use it, which is like, doesn't make sense in reality. Weird ways of structuring things in code. So that's always my second point, is where does it belong and what's the kind of flow of execution. But then everything after that is just brute force trial and error, basically. The saying is fail fast and frequently. It's better to do something and fail than to have not tried.
100% agree. And I try to focus a little bit on aspects of mental health on my channel. I'm also a music therapist, so I'm
awesome.
doing that, especially because this is such a creative process. You get very vulnerable especially when you're putting it out to other people, right?
Yeah.
And so you talking about like failure and being able to use that as a way to learn and get better is a very important point. So I'm curious, how do you sort of manage the mental health struggles that might come with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the question. I think one of the most important things, and something that a lot of people kind of get hung up on, is like the spiral of disappointment when, they start to burn out, so they're less productive, and because they're less productive, they feel worse and they burn out quicker. And then even, if they take a break, the whole time, they're just thinking, I should be working. I'm wasting time. So I think learning to just like let go, actively take a break without feeling that kind of guilt. Everyone wants to be productive, and when you're not productive, you feel like you're being lazy, even if you're really not. So that's definitely one. The other thing is, dealing with failures. Like I said, fail fast and frequently, or some people tend to kind of keep bashing their head against a problem. It's kind of the sunk cost fallacy, where you've invested too much time into it, so you can't just like take a step back and start it again. Whenever you do something and fail it, or end up with something that isn't what you wanted, you always gain something, which is experience. And the next time you try it, you'll do it faster, you'll do it tidier. But I guess just knowing if it's a healthy time to just kind of let it go, start again, and not to feel that guilt. It's really just being able to accept and just to realize that, you haven't lost anything. You've gained experience. Trying to have realistic expectations is also like a very, not setting hopes too high. Being happy when something succeeds. If something fails, well, you knew it was a possibility, and that you've learned from it.
Yeah, having that realistic, because sometimes you get, pretty far in your head, and oh, this is so great, this is so awesome.
Yeah, and, I know.
And then someone else sees it, and they're just like, that's absolute crap. And then you're just like, oh no, what's wrong with me? I think it's not so much like play testing, but it's making sure you're staying connected, because this is unless you have a team that you're working with, it's a very creative process, and you can get very, inside your head solo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you it's always good to just get other people's opinions, as often as you can, even if it's a small thing like, how does this model look? You might get months into your development and then realize that, the main character looks like a squash banana or something, even though in your head, it looks incredible. Sometimes you have to be harsh on yourself in order to avoid that disappointment. But then also just being able to be proud of the process, or the progress that you've made. If you've just started game development and you make a little jumpy thing with cubes, it's like, it's not gonna sell millions of copies, but you did it. And that's better than 99.9% of other people.
Just creating something is awesome. Like that's the achievement, and that's, if you're able to take that and have that be your intrinsic value that you're taking from it, then you're much better shielded against, I didn't make $1 million with my cube jumpy game, and what am I gonna do? So you're working on a project called Prismatica Tectonic Planes. So tell me a little bit about that.
Essentially, it's my first project I ever, I clicked new project in Unreal, and it's just kept evolving.
Did you name it Prismatica? Is that what you named it?
I did, actually. It was something that had just been in my brain for a while. It's Italian for prismatic or colorful. The art style is very kind of nice and colorful, and like big, bold, flat colors. And the way I'm kind of tackling it is like very, very free form. It's kind of a very chaotic development process, where it's like, it's mechanics first, yeah, I'm just a big fan of kind of making all these interlocking systems as like a base. Once all of the interaction systems are in there, and the inventory, and the the way the characters are simulated and all that, it could be a multiplayer battle royale, or it could be a survival game. It's more of a feeling, it's more of a vibe than a game at this point. But a lot of people seem to resonate with it. Just the reason that it's kind of mechanics first is because I do like to make videos about how to do XYZ. And if I was just making like an ARPG kind of Diablo clone sort of thing, there wouldn't be much to talk about. Kind of just like getting little bits from the AAA sphere, and kind of just showing people, you can do this in your indie game. It's all smoke and mirrors, and bring everyone along for the ride. And even if development takes 20 years, it'll all have been worth it, because I've met so many different people. I'm talking to you about it right now, which is is good. Again, I've learned so much from just scope creeping the hell out of it. So.
Scope creep. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually because you mentioned that, and that was like a point, because you've not sort of pigeonholed yourself into like, this is a Diablo clone, and then your mind will go to, what does Diablo do? And then you're just like, I'm gonna do this and this and this and this. But you're taking aspects from Breath of the Wild stuff that you've got going on. You've got the stylistic, cell shaded Ghibli, color artistic style that you're taking from, and so you're able to, like you say, scope creep and dip your hand into all these different things, but it's making something that's different. I think people often like, I want to make I don't know who wants to make Call of Duty, but I want to make Final Fantasy and do this like really crazy RPG thing.
Yeah.
But then everything gets put through that lens of Final Fantasy. Is there a part, an aspect of Prismatica, a part of the vibe that you've created that is your sort of your trophy, your favorite thing that you've done so far?
I'd say the character system is kind of my favorite thing. The way that I've built it, where every piece of clothing is unique and generated procedurally. I know people love that, the P word. It's not really procedural. There's just
it's pretty. It's pretty cool.
Procedural.
Pretty cool. You can take procedural.
Yeah. Okay. We'll say procedural then. Yeah, just the way we can have characters with so much detail that sets them apart from one another, have it run as well as it does. I've been contacted by a lot of people that have been like, oh, can you help me optimize, our characters or our materials and stuff. Our draw calls are we're hitting 10,000, and I'm like, how do you manage that? I really kind of want to lean into that, almost simulate a second, parallel universe in a way. All these characters kind of, they have their needs and wants, and they can almost talk to each other and comment about, each other's appearance or their personalities and that kind of stuff.
If you haven't checked out that video, it's really cool. And I even think it's half an hour, and you don't even feel like it's half an hour. It's
yeah, I think it's 58 minutes.
Oh, that's the thing. It didn't even feel like
it's a big one. Yeah.
It felt like 10 minutes, because you're just like, what? Oh, that's so cool. The other thing that jumped out at me and made me subscribe was that the way that you explain these things is very approachable. It's not coming from a super heady
professor.
Professorial, yeah, exactly. You're not coming at it from well, you got to do this first and da 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 da. It's very you're coming at it from a point of view of someone who has never done anything like that. They can understand that. How do you make tutorials that are relatable and not super boring? And you've mastered it. I think you've done a really great job.
I mean, the way that I explain things the most comfortably is, as though I'm just talking to a friend, rather than, I don't write any scripts for my videos. I have like 2 lines, so it is very just, on the off the cuff.
Procedural.
Yeah, it's procedural explanations, exactly. People always say, you explain things really well. I've never been a big fan of step by step professional. It's like a lecture almost. Whereas like creators that are, more casual, it feels more one-on-one, and it's easy to kind of get excited and like understand things if they use like a bit of metaphor for, this is like draw calls are like delivering pizza, like calling up the pizza shop, and you wouldn't call them up, order one pizza, wait for it to arrive, and then call them up again and order another pizza. You'd just say, hey, can I get 10 pizzas, please? And they're all going to be vegan margarita. And then you hang up and you get 10, vegan margarita pizzas.
All right, addendum lightning round. What's your favorite pizza?
I know that Domino's is like a global pizza chain. But in Australia, Domino's is very solid. It's very good. It's very affordable as well. So my go-to pizza is the spicy veg trio with no cheese.
What advice do you have for people beginning to do game development, or maybe they've done game development just a little bit? What one or two pieces of advice would you give them?
I think my first piece of advice would be to just do it. Like, I know a lot of people are afraid to kind of take that first step. It can seem from the outside something that's like, highly specialized, and there's like this big barrier for entry and that kind of thing. But there are definitely ways to approach it that are like super accessible, and you can start making a game within like the first week of learning it. I like to go against the grain. People always say like start a small project and finish it and release it. And my advice is just do whatever you want. If you want to try and make the next big MMO that's going to compete with World of Warcraft, just go for it, but make sure that you tackle it one step at a time. You might not make it, you might give up before you finish that project, but you'll be learning things that you're the most interested in, the things that fascinate you the most. If it catches your interest at that time, then you'll learn it a lot more efficiently. If I ever feel like, I don't want to be doing this, I just switch gears and do what I want to do.
So thanks Charles for hanging out and chatting. And
that's all right. Thanks for the interview.
You can check Charles out on YouTube at PrismaticaDev and on Twitch. We'll put the stiff down below.
And the schmibbly doobly. Actually, I usually sign off by saying, and with that, we say goodbye.
There we go. And with that, we say
goodbye.